The Galactic Empire's general, Orvax, stood. His scaled brow was at the edge of the light. His golden gaze skimmed over the room, frowning. The counselors gathered in the room, their combat-reflective armor worn, the ambient glow highlighting the scars on his face, scars from past conflicts. Throughout the galaxy, I don't speak as a diplomat, Orvax started, his deep voice echoing, but as a combatant who has studied warfare longer than some of you have lived. You want to join this alliance as conscripts? People are not what you believe them to be. The counselor, Wazel, a tall insectoid with iridescent wings, shimmered with each movement as he dismissively spoke. The humans' technology is outdated. It hardly meets galactic standards. They'll adhere to the same basic rules. Orvax's eyes narrowed, becoming piercing. That's exactly why they pose a threat. They use unpredictability as a weapon. They don't fight like we do, and they don't believe as we do. I've studied their history, their conflicts. They don't just defeat their enemies, they adapt and overcome them. A murmur echoed through the room as the advisors, each representing various races, exchanged doubtful looks. The holographic map displayed an area near the Sol system, focusing on a small green-blue planet. Orvax gazed at it and continued, his voice rising. When the Calry swarm descended on the old Tari worlds, it wasn't loyalty that won the day. It was defiance. Humanity changed the outcome of that conflict with ingenuity. We couldn't have predicted that. Wazel waved dismissively. They can be coerced into joining us. Against the swarm, they'll be no more than bait. We'll handle them after the enemy has been eliminated. Orvax stepped forward, a faint snarl in his voice. Give up a whole species to save your own? Do you remember the Battle of Carrot Prime? The Council forces outnumbered the human fleet 5-1, yet they used our own tactics against us. Their unpredictability is not a weakness. It is their greatest strength. The room fell silent. Orvax's voice grew even more intense. If you corner them, they won't give in. And if you agitate them, you will not be forgiven by them. Wazel rose from his chair, his wings buzzing. We are not here to amuse ourselves. The Council has already determined that humanity must join the Alliance or suffer the consequences. Orvax paused, about to respond, but then the holographic map was suddenly interrupted by a distorted signal. The projection flickered, revealing strange frequencies and symbols. A gasp filled the room as the gathered advisors realized it was from the swarm. Orvax murmured, his jaw tightening. This is not like them. They are near the Sol system, but their actions are inconsistent with their usual strategies. Wazel waved, a hand dismissively. They'll act as bait, and we will stay clear of their key systems. Orvax moved forward, his voice filled with anger. You think this is a game? You're ready to sacrifice humanity? Wazel's tone changed. General, this is not a negotiation. The will of the Council is final. Orvax stared at the hologram. As they approach Earth, you'll see. Humanity's caught between two predators, extinction and submission, and I have a terrible feeling they'll make their choice soon. With a whisper, Orvax muttered, One that will cost you. He turned and walked out of the room, his footsteps echoing as the enormous doors closed behind him. The counselors resumed, their debate, their voices rising in a heated discussion. Outside, Orvax's claws scraped against the metal walls. His mind was focused. He knew the storm was coming. Humanity, despite its limited resources, had a chance they would fight for. Back on Earth, in the United Earth Alliance's command center, the tension was palpable. Data streams flickered across monitors as seasoned tactician Phil, the leader of humanity's defense, examined the incoming threat. Humanity is outnumbered, Phil said, his eyes storm gray with determination. But we've faced insurmountable odds before. We've learned from history, and now we'll fight. Smarter. Dr. Charlie, the Alliance's top scientist, approached, his sharp eyes focused on the holographic schematics. "Phil, the Umbra project is almost ready. It's our best chance." "How long?" Phil asked. "Months, maybe." "But if we're attacked before it's ready," Phil interrupted, "then we fight with what we have." As alarms rang out, the hologram shifted, showing the Council's fleet and the swarm closing in. Phil's resolve hardened. "We're not losing this fight." Harris paused before answering, looking at his console. "Inconsistent, sir. They're adjusting quicker than anticipated. Their main force is completely avoiding the Council. It's moving directly toward Earth with the weight of... over the bridge." Those phrases became like... Phil's jaw clenched in a fog, yet his voice stayed calm as he instructed the ships to intercept their vanguard's focus fire. "From the calm, we must slow them down," the voice of Station Captain Ryan Grant crackled. "This is crazy. If we are outnumbered 10-1... "That's precisely the distance between them and Earth," Phil interrupted. "What are we going to do, Ryan? We don't have to win this battle. All you have to do is hold the line long enough for the other Umber to go online." End of the communications. Ryan let out a deep sigh. "I understand, but if this is what we're doing..." Phil, the leader, didn't dispute that Ryan was correct. No one was superior. "Make it matter if you're qualified for the position." Ryan's fighter squadron captain, Dr. Charlie, detached himself from the fleet. LOL showed up on the central bridge, observing his resolute yet pale face. The orbital's laboratory behind him, the station was humming with hectic activity. Charlie spoke, in a tense voice with urgency. "Number systems are operational, diagnostics are complete, but we have hours to go from full deployment. If you are unable to maintain, we'll keep the swarm engaged." Phil told him to be prepared. Charlie nodded despite his concern, his eyes still blinking as he let Phil think on his own for a few seconds before the combat call drew his focus once more. The first wave at the solar system's edge. The swarm confronted Earth's fighters. Ryan's voice broke the stillness, self-assured, in spite of the pandemonium that developed. "Stay focused. Choose your goals and make all of the human fighters' shots count." Darting among the biological ships of the swarm, their exact motions unpredictable, Ryan's ship led the attack, slicing through patches of green, releasing pinpoint railgun and plasma fire. He destroyed 3 enemy ships in swift succession. However, the swarm was unrelentingly changing their strategy at a frighteningly high pace. On the Phoenix, Phil saw the conflict as a blend of humanity's pride and dread. Determination and inventiveness were fully displayed, but the swarm was a powerful force of nature, ruthless, unforgiving, and completely invasive. For each destroyed swarm vessel, it appeared to be replaced by 2 more. "We have a transmission, Admiral," Harris abruptly stated. "It's from the Council." Phil's eyes suddenly shifted to the lieutenant as they passed it by. A holographic representation of Counselor Wayne flickered to life, clearly troubled by the conceit that had come to characterize him, supplanted by human desperation. His voice shivered. "Because we misjudged the swarm. If you do not help, our fleet will be lost. Phil, we risk the galaxy. You brought us here. You enticed the swarm." Anticipating you might use us as bait, Wayne's teeth snapped in exasperation. "We erred, but this is no longer the case regarding your trivial complaints. If the swarm conquers Earth, they will..." Phil gazed at the counselor for a long time before he spoke. "Follow our example if you desire our assistance. The remaining Council ships will strengthen the target on the swarm's left flank. Command nodes, follow my instructions or you're on your own." After hesitating, Wayne nodded, realizing the transmission was over. Phil returned his focus to the battle. The Council's surviving ships began the offensive, advancing to assist Earth's advanced fleet, giving a much-needed boost. However, it was insufficient because the swarm was still overwhelming. "Their numbers are overwhelming, sir," Harris said in a panicked tone. The primary force of the swarm is breaking through. They'll arrive on Earth in a matter of minutes. If they couldn't stop them, Phil's mind raced. Here, the swarm had fought everything. It would be forgotten. But then he recalled what Charlie said. If Umber isn't functioning when they get here, we're in trouble. A hazardous strategy started to take shape, but Harris's choice to give full power to the kinetic shields of the fleet was the only option. Get ready to launch a comprehensive frontal attack against the swarm, Phil firmly stated. The lieutenant blinked. Shocked with a full assault, sir? I know the risks, but we must. Here's what we do to buy Charlie time. The Phoenix surged ahead, taking the lead with the rest of the fleet trailing behind. Ryan's voice pierced the silence. What on earth are you doing giving Phil? Give humanity a chance, Phil said. Now, dear, duty, Captain, when the Navy struck. The ships of the swarm and Earth engaged in combat with a fury resulting from eruptions of desperation, illuminating the darkness of space. The synchronized attack of the swarm started to falter on Charlie's orbiting station. His hands were moving wildly as he worked. He pushed Umber more quickly than he had anticipated, systems to their maximum potential. The minutes extended into the infinite, each moment of battle a fight for survival. But eventually, Charlie's voice broke the silence. Umber is online. It's holding, but it's just a temporary fix. The swarm's scouts are already a deterrent. The grid will be tested in a few weeks. Phil stood for weeks, while the fleet prepared. In the Phoenix's hangar, the last payloads were loaded by technicians. Untested weapons were loaded into the ships, guided missiles intended to interfere with the swarm's neural network. It wasn't a choice, but there was little chance of success. Ryan walked up to where his helmet was tucked under his arm. You're actually joining us, Phil? Phil nodded. This fight isn't over until it's won. And the fleet began operations under the guise of the stars arching into Umber's shield. They traveled faster than light, on their way to the swarm's central hive, where their final hope lay. The size of the hive world became evident. Around